Welcome back to Story Deep Dive with Dana and Rachel. This is a podcast with book coaches, editors, and besties. We discuss books not as readers, but as writers to draw inspiration from great books and lots of laughs. Y'all, I don't know the way that this video pops back and forth, but Rachel thinks she Vanna White. I don't even know if y'all know who Vanna White is. Because oh my gosh.
Okay, let me just confess what I've been doing, because normally, right, it does it based on who's talking, which is why I take advantage of it. So the screen will switch based on who's talking, and when Dana's doing the intro, I will sort of like mime, like, book coaches, editors, and besties, or like Dana and Rachel, which is me, and like readers, but as writers. And I was just like
doing too much, i.e. doing too much.
100% of the time, there's only one. We only have one mode, and it's too much. Always too much.
We need to fix your modes, girl. Fix your modes. So with that said, y'all, as you can see, we are already on one, and we are continuing our discussion about Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. But before we get into talking about characters today, Rachel, what do you got going on over there at Story Cipher?
Ooh, we got all the things. So we already talked about, last week with enrollment going on, which what that means is that we're coming to the end of this cohort of Nov 101. And so one of the ways that we sort of like are part of our grand finale is we do a working weekend at the end of the semester. So this I always tailor it to like where everybody's at, right? What their particular sort of like sticking points have been or where they're at. So, we will sometimes spend, a full weekend, and it's like, it's a revision kind of like workshop weekend, right? And we've got a workbook, and we do, go through the whole thing. Sometimes it's a little bit like more broad where people are at kind of different points in the process, but we basically spend, we take a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday morning and afternoon sessions, and we show up and we talk about here's what we're working on. We work for about 2.5 hours. We hit questions, we troubleshoot at the end of each session, we take a break, and then we come back in the afternoon and we do it again. And we just really like block out that time to do some work. I'll do some teaching where it's relevant if people are working on something specific, fielding questions. But it's like our like big haul, at the end of the semester. It's kind of like cramming for finals, but I think more fun than cramming for finals, and gives us a chance to kind of like help push some things over the finish line there at the end of the semester. So that's what we got coming up over the weekend. And it's always a good time because you can just like spend a lot of time together. You spend sort of like the weekend hanging out, like a writing retreat. It's always really fun. So we're looking forward to that. What about you? What you got going? Because you've already done your workshop. You're like right where everybody sort of gathered and reviewed the year so far and all of that.
Yep. So y'all know we record this in advance, and my brain is always off one. So no, this coming up weekend at the time of this recording will be our retreat. Ooh,
okay.
Is it while we speak? It might be while we speak. Y'all, shows you that Dana does not know her calendar. I literally just go straight by the calendar. And so we are going to be going through the process, and we got to have our retreat and also preparing for our first book club meeting next month for their triple threat. Yes. So there's a very interesting, the retreat, which is this weekend. Oh my gosh, y'all, is it for real? Yes, it is.
Are you ready?
Look at that.
Did you prepare your stuff? Because you were on the fence about some things and still deciding. Do you have it all ready now? You ready to go?
Almost. I think I'm close. I'm close. We're going to be talking about, there's a couple things. We're going to be talking about catching up, of course, and where they are with their plans. Talking about their series creation according to where they're taking their brands. And so talking a lot about, I want to talk about reoccurring characters or casts, also plotting and developing your series and deciding if you want it to be interconnected or not. And while they're doing this, I think it's going to be so interesting for us to have this conversation, and then the going right into July where we'll have our first triple threat book. Yeah, so it's gonna be, which is gonna be insane. Like, I think it's gonna be so good, girl. It's either gonna be all hands on deck, or people are gonna be like running like the plague,
Throwing up
because
the Baptist finger and
girl,
sliding out the back.
listen, sliding out the side. Okay, they're gonna be on summer break. Um, to the point that I've decided I'm gonna do my triple threat again. Hell,
That's amazing.
girl. You know what? You always think stuff is amazing when you clapping in the audience. You be like, it's amazing.
I'm cheering you on from the peanut gallery. That's
You know,
the best thing I can offer is moral support. I think it would be worse if because I've done this to you before as well, and I think this one is worth when I'm like, are you sure?
yeah, you,
Is that really what you want to do?
girl. You know, when I say I'm gonna do it, I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna just do it. So yeah, but I think it's honestly the next. So this will be right in between when you all are listening to this. The retreat will be next weekend. We would have just finished boot camp. And so it's just going to be basically a romance overhaul. And I'm ready for it. Well, I'm saying I'm ready for it. I mean, I'm technically not ready for it, but I will be.
Wait. Say more words. Romance overhaul.
Yeah.
Tell me to explain that. I want to know what you mean by that.
Well, for the boot camp, which we talked a little bit about this in the overhaul, I mean, the overview, but for boot camp, it's going to be just having a week of talking about the 4-act structure.
Yeah.
And romance in general, and actually not general, just specifically. And so by the time you take that and you think about us talking about your test novel, your test novella, then we getting ready to go into the next week of how you take this into plotting your series. It's going to feel like the next 2 to 4 weeks for them, it's going to be intense and an opportunity to sort of revamp,
Yeah.
catch what they dropped, double click and commit on what they have left for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for it. Listen, I have no choice but to be excited because you're front and
Because you're in
center.
charge.
Listen, it is what it is, baby. I'm like, come on, bring it on, baby. Look. But I think it's gonna also be one of those things that it's a great sort of putting a pin in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like when it's sort of condensed in together, because it's like you just finished this, you're processing it, and now you get to come in this space and it's sort of right there, and you've got the resources, and now you turn into practical
Yeah.
application.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. Girl, listen, I'm going to need several seats and about 10 naps.
Good thing you've got a break scheduled somewhere in there, a summer
That's
break to
right.
regroup
That's
after all
right.
that.
Exactly. I see it. I see it in my future.
See it off in the distance, the light coming toward me.
By the time we get to our editor's takes, I'm not even gonna have one foot in, one foot out, girl. I'm gonna have 9 toes out, one toe in. It's gonna
Like, I'm still here. That's what I can tell you.
all I need is 45 more minutes. That's gonna be me. So I'm gonna be ready. But I think it's, I'm joking. Like, I'm serious, but I'm joking. But it's like it's gonna be intense.
Yeah.
I think every time we do a boot camp, it feels that way.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to think that at some point it won't feel that way, but I think it probably always will.
Yeah.
And then it also is an opportunity for us to really sort of, again, double click on, this is what Danja tells us about, and that's always refreshing, and it's always not challenging, but I always like the opportunity to challenge myself and getting even more clear
Mm-hmm.
about the things that aren't as clear, like what we're talking about with this series. When you're talking about reader expectations and how do you take this over into your series, and how do you hopefully maximize as much as you can in your content, so
Mhm.
that you have a story that when you're talking about your book one, that people want to get to your book two and your book three and so
Yeah.
on. And so it's it's a challenge, but we ain't never scared.
That's
So
right.
we're gonna
That's
just gonna
right.
do
Well,
it.
I think the other great thing about like, doing these things periodically, right? It's like it's kind of like what we talked about last week of like when you go through the same content, again, things that you maybe have you've seen before, you have some familiarity with, even stuff like the 4 act structure, right? When for your students who have been through it before, going through it again, like there's like another layer of information that they're getting. There's a right that opportunity to, like you said, double click on something or recommit or sort of like pick back up and kind of get like back in, diving in with both feet, get a clearer sort of perspective on something where you're like, oh yes, I'm having this sag in my story, and the boot camp and talking through how you do it, you're able to kind of shore those things up, and it really just, the more you do it, the more like that higher resolution you get to continue looking at it. And so I think it's such a great opportunity for your students to like be going back through it, as well as anyone new, right, who's coming in, who, man, if you want to get like a grasp on romance and how to write it, how to do it, like this boot camp is the way to go.
Yeah, and I like to add in because y'all know my timing is off. So if you miss the boot camp, I don't know, but the retreat is coming up. But I'll say it like this. I think that's another reason why the fact that I kept the retreat being private has been so
Hmm.
important.
Yeah.
Because this isn't about whenever we do the boot camp, it is an enrollment thing. It is an
Hmm.
opportunity for people to get a taste of what they will experience as a part of DTW. But the
Hmm.
retreat is almost like a mirror moment,
Yeah.
right? Where they can sort of reflect back of like where they are, what they
Hmm.
want, and then we get some very intentional coaching as well as teaching into those areas.
Hmm.
And so it is an opportunity. It can be the same thing, but the reality is unless you have a hook to hang it on,
Yeah.
it sort of can go in one ear and out the other ear, whether it's intentional or not.
Hmm.
And so and that's what makes it fun and also tiring.
Yeah.
And I mean, like literally having students right now finishing up projects so that their deck is clear,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, come on, you know how this
Yeah.
thing goes, right? Like it's just, and it's
So good.
helpful. It is. It is. It's always like, but I'm always like, as I get closer, who signed us up for this? Who did this schedule?
I vaguely remember this was a question you were asking last week about something else. I'm seeing a pattern emerging here.
Yeah, well, ignore the pattern. Ignore the pattern. So, with that said, let's go ahead and get into this. We are going to, well, first, let's go ahead and start off with the summary before we get into the conversation. Y'all, if you haven't done so already, if this is your first episode that you're joining us, the great thing is we aim to not have spoiler at all. And welcome if this is your first time. And if you've been with us before, hey girl, hey, or guy, it could go either way. It could go either way. But what we'll do is have our quick summary, which we're using the blurb this month. And then we're going to jump into our conversation around characters and fourth wing. So go ahead, Rachel, hit us with the blurb.
All right, let's go. So, 20-year-old Violet Sorengale was supposed to enter the Scribe Quadrant, living a quiet life among books and history. Now, the commanding general, also known as her tough as Talon's mother, has ordered Violet to join the hundreds of candidates striving to become the elite of Navarre, dragon riders. But when you're smaller than everyone else and your body is brittle, death is only a heartbeat away. Because dragons don't bond to fragile humans, they incinerate them. With fewer dragons willing to bond than cadets, most would kill Violet to better their own chances of success. The rest would kill her just for being her mother's daughter, like Zayden Ryerson, the most powerful and ruthless wing leader in the Riders Quadrant. She'll need every edge her wits can give her just to see the next sunrise. Yet with every day that passes, the war outside grows more deadly. The kingdom's protective wards are failing, and the death toll continues to rise. Every Even worse, Violet begins to suspect leadership is hiding a terrible secret. Friends, enemies, lovers, everyone at Basgiath War College has an agenda, because once you enter, there are only two ways out: graduate or die. I can't, when you end on a note like that, I can't. You need something that's like hoo ha or like bam, like
No,
she just.
we need no sound effects.
It's like we
We
need none of
don't
it.
need a karate chop.
0%. I'm really hoping the camera switched away from me when I went, ugh.
Like
that thing doesn't make it into the video.
be like, yeah, got that baby. Listen, y'all, we gonna love her anyway. So minus the karate chop at the end.
Wait, we're gonna love me minus the karate chop? The karate chop doesn't make it into the whole package that we have decided to love?
We love your karate chop too, Rachel.
Thank you. Okay, that's all I needed to
Like
hear.
this. Because you know I can't blink. Okay.
Comment karate chop in the comments. Give us that karate emoji in the comments.
She's having too much fun over there. What are some of the things that you sort of have that you want to talk about when it comes to characters as we dive into this conversation? I do want to point out, just as a caveat, we could talk about, this is one of those books you can talk about everything. But it also is one of those stories that it's hard to talk about some things without spoilers.
Mhm.
So us really just aiming to look at the things that rose to the top. I also feel like this conversation is going to be closely connected with what we talked about with plot, because of the way that she wrote this story, which is a good thing, but it also means that we're sort of overlooking some of the similar things, but from a different perspective. And lastly, I want to say as a caveat, I'll say it. It's just that there are going to be some things that we love and some things that we don't. And it doesn't mean that it is good or bad. It's just, it was a choice. And we will talk about maybe some other things that you want to consider if you are looking to write a romantasy or a same or similar style story. So, yeah. So, what are some of the things that you have down for us to discuss in this conversation?
Absolutely. So, I've got two main kind of things that are on my list here. The number one is setting up those key moments in a character's internal arc, right? Whether it's the reveal of a wound or like those really important moments when, you know, your character's making a really important choice. So kind of how you set up those important internal moments in a story. So that's thing number one. And then thing number two, I would really like to talk about POV choice, because I do think that she made a very intentional choice to go first person present tense. And I thought that it actually paired nicely with some of her world building choices. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about how that POV choice functions and how it sort of works with some of the world building aspects to make that choice feel like it was a good choice for the story. So those are my big ones. We'll cover little things, you know, about Violet and how she comes across and these kinds of things probably throughout the conversation. But those are my two big ones. What about you, Dana? What's kind of on your list for things you want to make sure we talk about?
First of all, those are gonna be really good. I think about so much how this story, and I don't think it was indie. I think it's trad, but it was written like an indie romance, in that a lot of POV in indie is first person present right now. And so knowing that you don't want to just pick it because it's what everyone else is doing, but making it a conscious decision as to why you're doing it makes a huge difference. So I'm looking forward to that. One of the things that I want us to talk about is how like every character that we see and we get to know reflects a part back to the protagonist, which is Violet. And I think this is a really great choice. I think this is something we should always do. I don't think that it's always easy to do, but I think she did a great job of that. Another thing is something that I pointed out in the plot, which is the love triangle. I love that one of the I'm gonna call both of them love interests. I am. One of the love interests is sort of like on the surface, not the one that you would think would be the person that she should be anywhere near, nor, fall in love with, but also is the person who is sort of pushing her to be a different version of herself. And then the other that you feel like would be the better choice is the one that can be the one that's sort of potentially holding her back, or having her to shrink or to stay in the state that she's always been known as. And I think having those choices, and the choice when it comes to love interest, is such an important choice.
Mhm.
And here, having it sort of pitted as a love triangle, I think you get to explore both of them while at the same time adding a really great dynamic. There were some parts where I felt like it was a stretch, but whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, who doesn't like the juiciness? We wanted all the tea. So we got it. The other thing that I think she did really well that I loved is sort of having an interesting use of secondary characters like the mother. Y'all, I don't 100% have words for it, but I love how she did it. And that this woman had me leaning in every single time she was on the page, because I could not for the life of me figure it out. What the heck is this woman thinking? Listen, if you could tell me, we would be BFFs for life. Like, I still didn't at the end of the story, and it's not done in a way that felt like a plot hole. It
Yeah.
felt like a very intentional choice that was an open loop that
Mhm.
kept me glued every time. Every time she was on the page, she'd give just enough, take just enough. And man, I think that that would be such an interesting take to have with your antagonist, to have with potential characters that could be future protagonists in other stories. So yeah, if we have enough time, I would love to talk about that, because I just loved that. It just made me so curious about her, and I low key didn't like her, but I don't know if I shouldn't like her because I don't know enough yet,
Yeah.
so I feel confused. I can't judge her because I don't know enough, but I know enough that I know I don't like her, and so that's what starts happening. And when a reader is doing that, you got something good going on. The final thing that I wanted to talk about, and we did talk about this last time, so I don't know if we'll go in as in depth, and you may have to go back to the plot, which I felt like comes back to the magic, in that I feel like I understand what she was trying to do. And y'all, I don't know her, she don't know me. It could happen in the future, you know what I'm saying? I'm a pretty dope woman. So I think that what she was trying to do was to use the magic to sort of be a landscape for some of the internal shifts that Violet needed to make. But some of the things that we discussed last week, that we won't rehash all of that, sort of got in the way a little bit. And so, but I think the general concept of it was very helpful, of utilizing, having different entities to be a representation of maternal love and paternal love and protection, and what are the benefits and the growth and the lessons that come to your protagonist by having access to that. And I think
Mhm.
that is really great fodder for character growth.
Yeah.
And so for that, it did it. Now, I don't think the magic system did all of that, but I could read between the lines.
Yeah.
I can read between the lines. And I think in general, it was set up to do really well. I think what I want to do is maybe start off with the different characters that we kind of can talk about just in general, and then maybe talking about the sort of internal moments,
Mhm.
because I think that is going to help going into the love interest. Maybe does that
Yeah.
sound like a good progression?
So
Yeah, we may
starting with
be
our
elevated more.
overall secondary
Yeah,
cast.
character. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll start off with just in general, in that this is a nice size cast. It's not a huge cast. We've had bigger ones,
Mhm.
but what I feel is that the secondary cast, to me, felt more significant because of the way she sort of almost laser pointed them at what Violet needed as a protagonist. And
Mhm.
I really feel like that is the aspect of this story that feels like something you get in a fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
right? The fantasy is usually really centered on your protagonist. Romance is a dual protagonist story.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you have, it's almost like you're split between the two, but they're equally as significant. But in fantasy, you do a lot of times have just your hero, and your
Mm-hmm.
hero is sort of going on this journey. And I think in this capacity, that's what it really felt like. And that you have the role that her mother played, the role that her brother plays, the role that her sister plays, the role that each of her friends, and y'all, you know how I am with character names, that they play. And even to the point of the healers and some of the people that kind of are low-key her mentors, how each one of them are sort of depositing or they're depositing and or really agitating something in Violet that is asking her to stand up and say, is this who I am?
Mm-hmm.
And is this who I really want to be? And who do I need to be to make it out of this thing alive? And having that life or death, that sort of graduate and die sort of hanging over your head, I mean, very fantasy, right? It's not as common in romance. I mean, it is if you go dark, but having that over her head is sort of this thing that makes all of those people become very powerful chess pieces on this board. And I think she did a great job of that. Whether it was love or acceptance, and you could say themes, but I think it was even more, right? How she saw herself, how she saw her fragility, how she saw her strengths,
Mm-hmm.
and beginning to see them as strengths versus trying to, in the beginning, aspire to what other people had. And a man, essentially, like, I wish I had that power, or I wish I had that speed, versus
Mm-hmm.
it being, no, but you have this. Learn how to use this. And it was almost as if and I kind of didn't until this very moment sort of parallel have a parallel thought with the magic. You know, usually what you'll have whenever you have your protagonist learning the magic, they are sort of learning it as a skill. It makes
Mm-hmm.
me think of Mistborn, right? Like learning it as a skill and learning how it operates. And because we didn't have that,
Mm-hmm.
it was almost as if that aspect that was really a great thing for Violet, it felt glossed over
Mm-hmm.
because it didn't have, it almost wasn't on center stage. We got those couple of moments, but our attention was sort of diverted to her fragility versus it
Yeah.
being towards her learning about herself and her, in that point, her natural gifts and abilities
Mm-hmm.
before we got to her magical gifts and abilities later. And so I think all of that comes, but it came through character,
Mm-hmm.
right? It came through the dragons, it came through the love interest, it came through the friendships, it came through the familial relationships, and all of it sort of fed like little streams into a river
Mm-hmm.
into Violet. And I think it was that portion of it was done really well.
Yeah, I think that that's such a great way to think about your cast, right? Because this is something, this is a phrase that you used in the pre-show, where you sort of mention it as being a helpful way to sort of like weed out your cast sometimes.
That's right.
So if you have cast members who are just kind of like there and they're just kind of bumping around and they don't seem to add anything, it's a great way to either like flag that and say okay, like they need to play a role, or to be like like they can
Gotta
go, we
go.
don't need them because they're not adding anything. And so really, and it also helps you create variety in your cast,
Hmm.
because you're looking at what are the different facets that I want to highlight, or what are the different skills that should be represented, what is each person going to be able to teach my protagonist. And it gives you kind of like a jumping off point to give some specificity to those individual characters so that your cast becomes distinct and also they're all kind of contributing to the story. And that's a really
Hmm.
helpful way to kind of like use your protagonist to kind of help anchor the different characters and what they're each uniquely bringing to the table.
Hmm. And you can do that anytime. I think this one, it just did it very well.
Hmm.
And it's almost, I guess you could even do it as a parallel, almost like when you are really ensuring that your characters have a distinct style and
Mhm.
voice cadence
Mhm.
and tone, it's almost like giving that like like a upgrade,
Yeah.
because it's being very intentional about, and you should do this anyway, but I think she did it very well. So yeah, but it makes me think about um as we think about that, it sort of also connects with what you want to talk about with those internal moments, because part of that connection is her growth, and part of it is both her internal growth as well as her external changes in her growth. And
Mhm.
so yeah, tell us a little bit about like some of those points that you want us to look at in the story.
Yeah, so when you think about a character's internal arc, you really want to anchor in, right, your character's specific journey. And the rule that we talk about, we've talked about this on the podcast before, is for each book, you get one one key focus transformation that we are like focusing our attention on. Now what that looks like, right, the opportunity is to see how it manifests in different situations across the story, and then how they change across the external events that they encounter that are continuing to challenge them. um, but you do want to be kind of consistent, right? And so one of the things that you sort of started to hint at is that it did feel like it was a little bit like direct, um like it tried to go multiple directions. And so we were kind of on one trajectory, which is very much about she's an underdog, she's fragile, she has to work harder than everyone to like be able to survive. And we're really like focused on that. And then when we start introducing like the magic and it's really when it starts to introduce the magic in particular, it feels like the conversation changes to something else, where it's like, well, I'm upset about the magic because of this reason, and I really wanted this other thing. And you get there, and I'm trying to talk vaguely so that it's
Yeah.
not spoilery. But you get the feeling that like, wait, this is not the conversation we were having over the whole story. When like, where did this come from? And when you have those moments, that's going to be a problem because it's undermining the actual overarching transformation. Because again, it feels like you changed the subject and introduced something else later in the story. And so when you're thinking about establishing that internal arc, the way that I like to treat, especially if you want to surprise the reader with some kind of reveal, right? Whether that's the truth of the wound or what's really behind all of the behavior and everything that's been going on, and there's something kind of more true behind all of it, whatever that thing is, you want to treat it like a mystery, right? You want to treat it like a reveal. And in order for a reveal to be satisfying, you need to set it up. And so what that looks like is dropping, again, I think about it like a mystery. So we think about like clues, right? Little moments, little these opportunities and hints and setups that are telling us, oh, there's more going on here. I don't know what it is, but I see it. There's something else happening here, that's at work behind all of this. So that when we get to the reveal, we go, oh, that's what this was really all about all this time. And there's something for us to actually look back to and be able to track those clues the same way with when we reveal the killer at the end of the story. Our audience should be able to say, oh my God, it's right. Like it was right
Right in my
there,
face.
but now I see it, and it's satisfying versus, wait, what's the problem? Like what? Wait, where? And that's really something that you, again, especially if you're looking to, no matter what your internal, right, you get one transformation, you build that across a series if you're in a series. But if you're looking to reveal something specific and kind of like, again, it's like a oh moment, you do have to set that up. We do need those hints, and you need to kind of have that in the back of your mind as you're writing the story before the reveal, so that that reveal is actually satisfying rather than feeling like we've changed the subject.
Mm-hmm. I always talk about this as, and we y'all, we have a long pre-show. That's what we probably should call it. We need to start recording it, but I always call this breadcrumbs. I always think about Hansel and Gretel, right? Like having a breadcrumbs and being able to look back and have a trail. And you don't want it to be so significant that it's slapping people in the face because it
Mm-hmm.
ruins the reveal. But the problem comes in when you think you're given a twist or an unexpected event and it's like it's confusing
Mm-hmm.
because we had no idea that they even wanted that, or you
Yes.
never revealed that that was a motivation for them, or we have no clue and you think it's this big deal and all it is turning into is confusion,
Yeah.
especially when it's something yummy. Like, and
Yeah.
especially when it's something
Oh,
yummy, I feel like, girl, I could slap you with this book, but I wouldn't do
yes.
that. So it's
Yes.
like,
Can I just like
go
sneak in
ahead.
there really quick of
Yes.
like, I was so disappointed at that reveal because I was like, wait, oh my, like, do you know how much more depth and how much more you could have like pulled in the book if you had taken that and started that trajectory at the beginning of the story? Like,
Mhm.
it could have added so much specificity to that outsiderness and to that, you know, trying to find your place and not wanting to be here. Like there was so much opportunity, and that, like, that's the tragedy of like, oh man, there was an opportunity and we didn't lean into it, dang it.
And it would have given a lot more clarity as to why you keep fighting something that feels like, why?
Yeah.
Why keep doing this? Right.
Yeah.
And granted, like she has a reason, like, because she doesn't want to die.
Mhm.
But that's not always a driving force for a character. And that
Yeah.
honestly is not the driving force for her. Yes, she wants
Mhm.
to live. But I think what it happens is, well, here's what it really does. What it really does is it gives you an opportunity to connect with readers in a way that is deeper, that
Mhm.
is not about something that they cannot relate to. We cannot
Mhm.
relate to being a dragon rider. Listen, I wouldn't even want to relate even if I could. Why? Because I'm scary. I ain't gonna do it. But but we can relate to not wanting to disappoint a parent, or
Mhm.
wanting to honor somebody that you care about or whatever, and
Mhm.
not being able to get the chance, or this is your one chance to get it right. Like, we all in our own way
Yeah.
can relate to that. And the moment you have a way for us to relate to a character with something that feels real to
Mhm.
us, that's just another hook.
Yeah.
As she says, you got one more talent in us, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's the thing that we're always looking for. And that one was served up, but was not sent out hot. It was sent
Yeah.
out cold. So if
Yes.
you would have just, y'all mixing up metaphors, don't do it like me. But I totally get that. And I think it's one of those things that I sort of put in my notes, like it was a missed opportunity. That was a
Mhm.
missed opportunity. And so, okay, so we have those setups, but I think with that, part of those moments, it played really well here when it came to the love interest.
Yeah.
We talked about the cast and the different, how they sort of was these like little rivers flowing, or little streams flowing into the river of Violet. And but having the way she set up the love interest, I feel like it was really great. In romance, it could be this thing that you automatically know who the love interest is, and you already know what's gonna happen. But here, you sort of had that love triangle, and you had this opportunity to be able to sort of pit what you want versus what you need against each other. And I think that she did really well. It probably doesn't help, and I may be totally biased because I totally liked one of the love interests more than the other one. I was like, dude, you get on my nerves. You get on my nerves. I wanted to do your karate chop earlier on him. And so I feel like that, but what that does, especially when you have a story that's being set up for several books, because I have a feeling this is going to come back in some way. It may not be with the same two, but that does is allow you to get an opportunity to really learn your protagonist,
Mhm.
to understand what those things are that they think that they are versus who they are, and versus
Mhm.
who they start turning into, who they're becoming. Because when you have several books, it's really important to start really distinguishing how they're evolving across each
Yeah.
one of those books. And a lot of times those relationships can help you pace that, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like a really great indicator of where they are. And then lastly, it makes it so that when you're doing a slow burn, you got something going on, right?
Yeah.
Like that it's not boring. It's like, dang, when you gonna kiss already? When you going
Yeah.
you don't have an opportunity to think about that because it's other things going on. And I think
Yeah.
that helps when you have a true slow burn. That it's it's not a distraction, but it kind of is in reality. But what we're doing is learning more about who she is, what she needs. And there's something about a person that comes into her world that doesn't see her the way that everyone else sees her.
Hmm.
And it begins to challenge her thinking. And that's all change is, right?
Yeah.
It's challenged thinking. And he did a phenomenal job of that. And we loved every minute of it. I'm speaking for all of us, we loved every minute of it. And so I felt like seeing it with those love interests, whether she was going to shrink, whether she was going to expand, whether she was going to go with the easy answer, or
Hmm.
whether she was going to be courageous
Hmm.
and go with the less than common choice. And so and that's where I'll say the last part of this is that's where I feel like that enemies to lovers aspect of this really was shining if she was on
Yeah.
her thing. And then all of a sudden we got to the windows being busted and headboards being broken, and I was like, okay, I'm over.
Also, this is a funny thing. This is actually not a criticism. This is just a funny thing. I can't count the number of times I heard the word armoire. Like, so
Girl.
something about that armoire was always getting busted, was getting stuff thrown at it. We were dodging around it. I was like, there was this moment when I was like, is the armoire like a plot point? Because I've heard this word so many times. It like
Rachel, and you're oh my wow. I'm
well,
like
and the audiobook narrator, so like I would say it like, whatever, with my trashy American accent, which is like armoire, with like kind of a harder R. But then the audiobook narrator said it armoire, and otherwise English, but we've got like it's the armoire. And that also made it like double stick out to me. It was just one of those funny things where I was like, man, this thing sure comes up a lot.
Girl,
I hope there's a hidden
school.
panel in there or something that we're gonna talk about.
Girl, if it was a hidden panel, they tore that thing up.
Whatever was in there is gone now.
It ain't gonna help nobody.
I do want to make a quick mention though about the love triangle, because I
Mhm.
think something that I've noticed is that a lot of times love triangles are easy, like it's easy for them to feel kind of pointless actually,
Mm.
where the alternative lover is like feels like a non-entity in
Mhm.
a way. So there's like two ways that I've seen this. Either they're literally like just like some vanilla nobody that we're like, why? Like who is this guy? Like so random. Or they're like, they're obviously wrong, right? Where it's like they're a scumbag or they're something like, unless you're looking at, something specific about leaving a certain type of relationship, right? And then, being better or something, along those lines, maybe. But a lot of times a love triangle can feel kind of arbitrary because it's like very clear, like who the good one is. And then the other one is like so awful that, or so like underwhelming that they feel like they're not adding anything to the story, versus what I think we got here was like there was this invitation to like someone who's basically affirming all of the things that Violet thinks about herself, versus someone who's saying, no, I think you're better than that, and giving her the opportunity to like those choices representing something about how she's changing, and playing a sort of more significant role in her internal arc of trying to represent that in a way of like there's this kind of safe option of how you've always thought of yourself, and then there's something like you said, a little riskier, something that requires more courage, and someone who is saying, I think you're better than this, like I don't think that you should be coddled or protected in this way of like everyone's trying to like keep you from breaking, and I think you're stronger than that. And so it felt like it had a little more significance to it rather than just like a love triangle just to have one.
Yeah, I think the one that you don't like is not strong in general, and I think you
Mhm.
see it because that's just easier.
Mhm.
I One of my favorite love triangles to look at as an example is in the movie Sweet Home Alabama.
Mhm.
Because she could have picked both. She could
Yeah.
have picked either. And I
Mhm.
love that. And I think
Yeah.
that is when you have a true love triangle. It's sort of like the
Mhm.
best worst decision, or best
Mhm.
bad decision,
Yeah.
right? Or the best good decision. And
Mhm.
it's everyone has something that's a pro and a con. And even
Mhm.
here, I think the thing that can get missed is the fact that even in his coddling, he
Mhm.
wanted it because he wanted her safe. And
Yeah.
we do that all the time, right?
Yeah.
We do that all the time because we don't want, just like her sister advocating for, she is this thing. And the reality is, a lot of times the knowledge of who we are is really being held, is holding captive who we
Mhm.
could be.
Yeah.
And the people that are trying to keep you safe
Mhm.
are not willing to take the chance that you could get the or die part.
Yeah.
Well, we just gonna keep you fragile, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
right. And so it could be that the other person, in wanting you to go all out, has no stakes. They don't
Mhm.
have no stakes if you fail. They
Yeah.
don't have no stakes if you die,
Mhm.
right? And the people who love you do. And so here's the thing, it goes back to sort of like each of those people serving very distinct parts. And even when it was good or bad, it was still a part of her um deciding,
Mhm.
who am I?
Yeah.
And listen, y'all, this thing is moving so fast. It's not like she's sitting twiddling her thumbs.
Yeah.
Who am I going to be today?
Yeah.
But it's a great representation of a love triangle, of that
Mhm.
both choices would have come with pros and cons, and that's
Yeah.
the best kind,
Yeah.
because ultimately it's a lot of times in the nuance where the answers lie. But
Mhm.
that's another reason why it helps time pass, right?
Yeah.
It's significant enough. We Now sometimes it just got to be like, okay, girl, just decide. But
Yeah.
this is a story. It's a story. And we haven't said it here, and I didn't say it earlier. We just got to remember, too. I just remember these are 20-year-olds. Like, I just feel like it's going to be some back and forth. At least here, it was a little more significant because it was for more than just kind of what we talked about earlier, her personal reasons.
Mhm.
There were personal, political, her stakes in being in the college and already being looked at a particular way because
Mhm.
of her mother. But the roles that both of them held, like there was so much at stake just
Mhm.
in the having the option, not even just
Yeah.
in the choice. So I
Yeah.
think that's where it was nice and layered. And I love the
Yeah.
way she did that. Talk to us a little bit now, if you will, about the point of view choice, because again, I know that in romance right now, in general, first person present is just a common choice because it's
Mhm.
something that readers have come to know. But knowing why making that choice is a great choice for your particular story, that's like 10 times better.
Yeah, yeah, I think, being intentional about your POV choice. Now, just to your point, like sometimes you're like, okay, this is what like people are looking for, and you can write it, in that particular way to abide with that. But this actually felt like it complemented what the story was doing. So we've already talked about the world building and the magic is a little squishy, and I'm not going to go off on that. But I think there were a couple of strong, like there were a couple of world building choices that I really liked, and that this POV choice actually really complemented. So there's two particular ones about number one, the way that this is, I don't think it's a spoiler. I think she expresses it pretty quickly, that when you pair with a dragon, you can telepathically communicate. This is one of it's like a known skill for dragon riders. And so when she pairs with a dragon, so then she's able to talk to this dragon telepathically. And so what happens is she will be minding her business, right? She's in class. She's doing something, she's thinking, and the dragon will interrupt like a conversation in her head, right? And it really what was so great is because it was happening in present tense. So, there will be scenes where Violet is talking to somebody and she's talking, and then in her head, there will be an interruption from her dragon who has side commentary. And it worked so nicely in present tense because it really felt like an interruption. Like it felt like exactly what it was, which was she's trying to hold a conversation, and like, grumpy old man has opinions in her head and is like sharing them. And those, like, that made for such a fun experience of the relationship between writer and dragon, and really kind of participated in building that sense of camaraderie that a writer is meant to build with their dragon. And so first person present tense really made that choice kind of really pop in a meaningful way, and gave it that extra, right, like it gave me an extra like laugh out loud when the
Mm-hmm.
dragon had something to say and was interrupting. And the dragon will interrupt at all kinds of inopportune moments, and it's fantastic every time. And similarly, the way that sort of writers manage the magic, and this was another choice, just a world building choice that I liked, is she kind of came up with this. She uses this sort of mind palace idea of like how the way that you control and learn how to use your magic is sort of like you create these mental models, that again to me reminds me of like the idea of a mind palace. And this is how you connect to the magic, this is how you use it, this is how you control it. And first of all, I just think as a world building choice, like it was neat to see that kind of specificity so that we can actually, it gives us something concrete to look at when she's trying to use the
Mm-hmm.
magic. So rather than like, oh, I focused really hard and I tried to pull on the magic, it gives us actually one layer more specific for what it actually means or looks like to do that thing. And I thought that was a really neat choice. And so when you pair that with first person present tense, it gives that immediacy to using the magic. So in a moment when you really need to pull on the magic, or in a moment when you're sort of really needing to find control, bringing us in that present tense search for go into the mind palace and I need to do X or I need to do Y, or I need to find Z, right? In that moment, it gives it that kind of immediacy in the moment of the urgency of there's this thing going on outside of us, and I need to focus really hard on what's going on in my mind in order to, again, pull on the magic or whatever it is that I'm trying to do. And again, that present tense really gave us feeling like that front row seat and the immediacy and urgency of using it, or the difficulty of using it, right? Where it's like, oh, I'm looking for a window. And so we're kind of watching her try to find a window, or whatever. I don't want to again, I'm like having to like don't spoil, and so I'm having to like pick and choose what I'm using as examples, but trying to get specific. But those, because of that kind of world building, present tense and first person made those choices kind of pop extra on the page and made them feel more meaningful, and even more like they just added even more to the story because of that POV choice.
Mm-hmm. Now, low key, y'all, I'm hoping that that's not us talking about this doesn't feel like a spoiler. I don't think it does. About the whole thing with the dragon, I just feel like a little bit, not
Do
for
you
real.
think? Because I
You,
feel like it's
Rachel,
obvious
you.
that she can either bond a dragon or she won't survive the academy. Like that they literally tell us that right away.
Well,
So
we don't
obviously, if
know
she's gonna,
she does.
what do we think, she's gonna die at the end of the book?
She could.
Could she?
I know.
I think that this is well established that Violet has a little bit of plot armor, and she's gonna make it through to the end no matter what because she's the
Y'all,
protagonist.
I don't know if this story was a spoiler or not, but the point is, I think you're absolutely correct. I think it serves well, and here it kind of makes me piggyback into the thing with the magic. The as the last part for me, which is part of sort of like what you're talking about here. Part of what we were talking about with the secondary characters, a lot of that, the magical elements are connected to what what Violet needs. And I think now that I'm sort of saying this out loud again, it makes me think about how when you have a story that is character driven, there are so many doors and passageways that you can choose to be able to convey that need and that transformation. And here, I think that's where she sort of tapped into the magic. And
Mhm.
I really wish it would have been just a tad bit more.
Yeah.
Because I use the example of the maternal love that she was needing and support she was needing, the paternal love and that she was needing the protection and the push, almost like little birdie, you got to go out of the nest and you've got to fly,
Mhm.
but doing it in a safe container. And I think on one hand, I wish she would have gone there a little bit more in the
Mhm.
story. But on the flip side, I think it was done really well for this to be a 20-year-old.
Mhm.
It makes me think about like my kids of like, okay, I want my kids to be grown enough that you got to go buy your own groceries and you got to take care of yourself. But then at the same time, you still stay at your mama house. So just in case anything go wrong, call your mama. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's like having that balance. And so I feel like that was done well in a sense of this being in a college setting and her age and what she's going through, but that she sort of tapped into magic and tapped into these relationships to be the conduit of that personal growth. And I thought that was done well. But it was sort of one of those things of, I think it was risky,
Mhm.
being that there wasn't a whole lot of concrete things for us to hold on to
Yeah.
for the magic, but I think the risk paid off because of how she chose to do it. And
Mhm.
those are just things we just can't say, but how she chose to do it, and a lot of duality that's sort of used here to
Mhm.
be able to um, compensate, if you will, for
Mhm.
what Violet is lacking. And what she's lacking more than anything has nothing to do with her fragility. And
Yeah.
that's a big part of things.
Mhm.
And so I feel like it, it's where I like to tell my clients a lot of times that a great story can cover a multitude of sins,
Mhm.
right? If you really do a story in a way that people relate to, they're
Mhm.
not going to be focused on a lot of your pros. They're not going to be
Mhm.
focused on if a couple of characters sound the same. Like,
Mhm.
they will forgive. This is how you could have a great read but a bad book.
Mhm. Yeah.
and and here I feel like this is one of those aspects that make a lot of the other things just fly out the window,
Mhm.
because it becomes so relatable
Mhm.
on a human level. And now we're just having it with dragon writers, and this is where books are amazing,
Yeah.
because I get to learn about this and pretend like I'm writing a dragon. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like, sign me up 2 times. And so I think that's one of those things that, again, I sort of in my notes had it as like a missed opportunity, but in on the other hand, it just wasn't. It was what it was. And it could be because I haven't read the next book,
Mhm.
that there are some aspects of it that we get more understanding and filling in the gaps because we have more exposure to the world. And I don't
Mhm.
know that yet. But that is something that I sort of noted, that I felt like I didn't want to miss opportunity. And I have some couple of questions that I want to just share at the end. Was there anything else that you want to add to that or that we missed?
I think we pretty much covered um yeah, covered everything that's on my list. So if you want to go ahead and hit us with some of those sort of like parting thoughts or questions to just kind of
Mhm.
round us out for the day.
Yeah. So the final things I want to say, that this, you know what? This is why I love having these discussions, y'all. Like, we do pre-talks. You read the story, you read it a couple of times, but there are times where you don't really, it doesn't resonate with you fully how you feel about a story until you have to talk about it.
Mhm.
Whether it's to defend it or you start sort of parsing things that you kind of gave a pass to, or you just have a personal affinity towards,
Mhm.
that just makes the story very unique to you. And this is why stories are such an amazing avenue, that you
Yeah.
can't account for things that people bring to the story, right? And
Yeah.
that's sort of what these conversations show us. But there are sort of like three questions that I wrote down that I want you to think about when you think about your character, because this is a great story when you think about your protagonist's journey. And it starts off right out the gate. And as we move forward, y'all, there are some times where it stumbles. There are some times where it rushes way too fast. And there are other times where it feels just right. And you get all of that. So the questions that I have is sort of like, what journey is your protagonist on? Um, there are some times in this story where I feel like it was kind of forgotten, right? It kind of felt like you thought the journey was just to get through the war college, but that
Yeah.
really wasn't the full journey.
Hmm.
And sometimes we forget that because we sort of get caught up in the boom, bam, pow.
Hmm.
But if you really are in this story was set up as like a character driven story set in this particular time in Navarre, and that was important, but we really don't get the full importance till the end of the story. So
Hmm.
really it's about Violet in her journey. So, what journey is your protagonist on? What does your protagonist need most? And there's a huge thing that you can go down as far as that rabbit trail of, what do they need versus what do they want? And in the
Hmm.
beginning of the story, the want is usually louder than the need, but
Yeah.
ultimately for them to make it through the journey, we really should discover that the need is more important,
Yeah.
and that the need is what they really should have wanted. They just didn't know no better.
Hmm.
Right. And sometimes if you get that mixed up, we get it mixed up,
Hmm.
and you miss out on a great opportunity. There was a bunch of moments that were setups that did not get slam dunked
Yeah.
because of that mix up.
Hmm.
And again, I don't know her, she don't know me. It's a great story. However, we are not Rebecca Yarros. We
Yeah.
don't have her marketing budget. Maybe one day, but we don't right now. And so therefore, we need to stack all the odds in our favor. And
Hmm.
that's how you do it, right? So, what does your character need most? And the last question is, what will it take to get it? And even if you wanted to go even further, of like, what are they willing to do to get it? What will it take? And I think a lot of times that what will it take, we sort of can grab at the low hanging fruit sometimes, or we'll grab at what we think is going to be the most interesting versus it being the one that feels the most connected and that feels the most connected to the journey that you are placing them on, so that we as the reader are sort of leaning in
Hmm.
because we can see the thing coming for her,
Yeah.
right? And we can see the limits and those guardrails sort of coming in, and we can sort of anticipate, and that's what makes us reach out and want to protect her, and we want her to not bump and hurt herself, and we want her to be brave, and we want her to be courageous, but we want her to be safe, and we want her not to do stupid stuff. And all of that says that we're invested, but knowing what those things are helps you to be like a shifter,
Hmm.
right? To shift through all of the many choices that you could have and pick the choices that are going to make for the best journey and the best story that you can create for that character and for your readers and our reading experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to make a comment on this of like, because you said sometimes we'll reach for maybe what we think would be the most interesting, or we reach for maybe the low hanging fruit, or just we reach for what we think is right for the story. But this is where multiple drafts is like your friend, right?
Yes.
Because it's sometimes you can be writing a story and you can think, oh, I kind of want to do this internal thing, and so you start grabbing for the things that seem like they're available, and it's whatever's getting you through the draft. But then when you're able to take a step back and look at the story and think about the truth of the story, right, the truth of the character's arc, it can really help you to get like ultra specific for that character and be like, oh, like I can really nail down and see what she needs in maybe more specific terms than I understood at the first draft or at the outline level. And those, like that kind of iterative process, that is how you come to those things so much of the time, and how you really boil down and get ultra specific about what it looks like for your character. And so I wanted to like kind of leave that sense of spaciousness, because sometimes I'll have writers who show up to a story and they're like, okay, I think my story is about this thing, right? Like the internal arc is about this thing. And when they write it, they find out so much more about the like the real truth of that internal arc.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they'll find out they actually are writing about something else altogether. Like they
Mm-hmm.
just, in experiencing it, they're like, oh, this is actually what the story is about. But even if you're very clear on what it's about, what it looks like and the truth of that thing, and it's like at its heart, starts to get clearer to you in the process. And that's why revision is such an amazing part of the process, because you discover that thing to be true, right? You discover what that thing is, and then you're able to revise so that you are able, right? You're setting it up, you're really like, you're crystal clear in the writing, and bringing that across, and subjecting your protagonist to the things that are going to help them come to that truth or come to that realization. And that's why like it takes multiple drafts, and that is okay and perfectly normal to the process.
I think that's absolutely true. The final thing that I want to say before we close out in is this. Listen, this woman wrote an amazing story. Period. Some people will like it, some people won't. Sometimes it's your jam, sometimes it's not. And I think even with having this discussion, you have to have the wiggle room to be able to explore like what's there, maybe things that could have been different or changed for the sake of getting better at craft and to become a better writer. But at the end of the day, this is a great story. And this is why, having a team or people that you work with can also help you see something and make something better, make something different. And so even as we're saying this, like it is what it is, but there are things where we're like, oh man, I would have really liked to see this. Um, and it always reminds me that even in having the conversation, it's not ever to be disrespectful or whatever to what's there, but it
Mm-hmm.
also can be the thing of like, this is why readers would shy away, or this is
Mm-hmm.
why a reader wouldn't finish it. And so it's helpful to say, okay, yeah, I'm not going to go that way, and having in your mind, but this is why. Or oh, maybe I'll try that on my next book.
Mm-hmm.
Or being able to put into words what you are experiencing, to be able to say, oh, wow, what is my own take on that? And I
Yeah.
think that's what makes all of this such a wonderful experience, whether you are a reader or a writer or an editor, and you just love storytelling. So, with that said, y'all, we are about to bounce. If you haven't done so already, don't forget to visit us online at storydeepdive.com. You can find us on wherever you love to hear your podcast. Don't forget to rate or leave a comment. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. Yeah, I feel like we are all the places, and you can find us well. Okay. So go ahead and let us know if you have any questions, or if you have anything that we didn't talk about, because we're always looking for discussion topics for our bonus conversations, or even if you are looking for a particular book and maybe we should add it to our upcoming reading list. So with that said, we are out. Everyone have a fantastic day, and we will see you in our next episode, where we're going to start bringing this thing together. We're going to try our absolute best to tie it together with a bow. I don't know how we're going to do, because there's so many things going on, but we're going to do our best. So we will do our editor's takeaway next week to close out, and we will be announcing our next reading selection. All right. So with that said, we are out. Take care. And as always, happy writing.